Not quite. It is 5:30. I will call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Meister,
Present.
Councilmember Beltran,
Present.
Councilmember Wyrock,
Present.
Vice Mayor Kurla,
Present.
Mayor Flores.
Present. We'll now go into oral communications. This is the opportunity to address the city council on any matter scheduled for closed session. Unless additional time is authorized by the council, all commentary shall be limited to 3 minutes. We have no one in council chambers. Do we have anyone on virtually?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to the city council closed session items.
Thank you, Mayor. Closed session pursuant to Item 1, Government Code Section 54956.8, Conference of Real Property Negotiator, Property APN 260300030, Agent Negotiator Patrice Hildreth and Jason Ridenour, Negotiating Parties, City of Porterville and Self-Help Enterprises, under negotiation, terms and price. Item 2, Government Code Section 54956.95, Liability Claim, Claimant Judy Cicito, Agency claimed against City of Porterville. Item 3, Government Code Section 54956.9D1, Commerce and Legal Counsel, Existing Litigation, Friant Water Authority v. Eastern Tule Groundwater Sustainability Agency, Tulare County Superior Court Case Number VCU 306343. Item 4, Government Code Section 54956.9D3, Conference of Legal Counsel, Anticipated Litigation, Significant Exposure Litigation, 2 cases in which facts are not known to plaintiff. Item 5, Government Code Section 54956.9D4, Conference of Legal Counsel, Anticipation Litigation, Initiation Litigation, 3 cases.
Thank you. It is 5:31. We will go into closed session. It is 6:31. We will reconvene open session and report on reportable action taken in closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one item. On item number 2, the liability claim of Judy Saucedo. On a motion by Mayor Flores, seconded by Councilmember Meister, and a 5-0 vote, that claim was denied. Thank you.
Thank you. I invite you to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for an invocation or a moment of silence. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there anyone that would like to come forward and do an invocation? If not, please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated. We will now move into oral communications. This is the opportunity to address the council on any matter of interest, whether on the agenda or not. Please address all items not scheduled for public hearing at this time. Unless additional time is authorized by the council, all commentary shall be limited to 3 minutes. You will be asked to state your name and city for the record. If you are here for the public hearings, numbers 14 and 15, please hold your comments until those items come up on the agenda. You will be given the opportunity at that time to speak at the public hearings. We will continue to adhere to the 3-minute per speaker time period so that City Council, in an orderly fashion, can proceed with decision-making responsibilities this evening. Is there anyone that would like to come forward under oral communications? Please do so now.
Hi, my name is Luis Perez. I sent you an email last week asking for a Will Nasser water. I went to the county to ask for a water well, new water well in my property. I'm in the county. And they sent me they need no serve water from the city of Porterville. And I just talked with the with the engineer, and my property is like 800 feet away from the city water. I like to get letter from the city of Porterville to get my permit to get a new water well. I don't know there is a possible to get that service. And I don't know why they asked me for that. I remember a long time ago, I was living in a county, and the water was right there in front of my house, and I asked for water and say, you are a county, we're gonna provide water. And now I'm county, and you're gonna provide water, so the water is 800 feet away from my house, so it's gonna cost me a lot of money to get water to my property. I don't know if this is possible to get the water letter, no service water letter, to get my permit in the county. So that's all I can say.
Please leave your information with city staff, please, Mr. Knight, and they will be in touch with you. Please leave your contact information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to come forward? Please do so now for oral communications. Okay, no one else? Then we will, do we have anyone on virtually? Please let them in if there is someone on virtually.
Yes, Your Honor, I'll go ahead and bring them in.
Okay, please let them in.
Hello, City Council. This is Brock Neely, address on record. I just wanted to let all of you know that I sent Fernando the link to the manual from the California State Library's office and the librarian, California State Librarian, on all laws concerning libraries within the state of California. I strongly recommend before the next City Council meeting that you all download it and look at page 141 through page 146, because I will be talking on this subject at the next meeting. And it's very important because this has a lot to do with the library that we have and don't have. And changes that were made in, as far as I can tell, 2010, that were not really done according to legal action in the state of California. The other thing is, I talked to one of the council members about some issues with trees out at Veterans Park. I expect each one of those monuments to have a live tree on May 26th when we go out to put flags out. Because that is the agreement with those families to have those memorial plaques out there. There's to be a live tree at each one of those plaques. So if you're not going to provide the service and honor our fallen veterans, then maybe you should not even consider yourselves patriotic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? So we will just now move on. There's no one else on virtually?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. We will now move on to the reports. This is the time for all committee, commission, board reports, subcommittee reports, and staff informational items. Parks and Leisure Commission? No? Library and Literacy? Nope. Okay. The Arts Commission? No? Animal Control? Nope. The Youth Commission?
Good morning, Your Honor. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you.
Great evening to all of the city council members. My name is Ala Saleh. This is my second year in the Youth Commission. I am a junior at Harmony Magnet Academy.
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Kimberly Ibarra. This is my third and final year being part of the Youth Commission. I really enjoyed all my years here, and I hope you guys enjoy our presentation.
So we wanted to start off, this is where we kind of wanted to introduce ourselves, but we kind of already did that for you guys. So yeah, so we will go on to the next part. So Community Development Department, so over the past 2 years, both last year and this year, we learned a lot of information about what it takes to get certain businesses to come out here, and that it's not just simple, hey, can you guys come up here and come and be in Porterville? It actually takes a lot of years and a lot of dedication to bring people here, and sometimes it may fail, like with Walmart, took 11 years, but we just couldn't get them to come here. So that's just one example of something that I learned, that everything takes a long process. So it was great to learn about that. And then with the State Seal of Civic Engagement, so we had the pleasure of getting a presentation from Mrs. Drum. She gave us a lot of information on how to get our State Seal of Civic Engagement, and I had the wonderful opportunity of doing so. I was able to do a presentation on kind of like climate change and how we want to bring green energy. And I remember I did see you over there, Mayor Flores. I do remember. I don't know if you remember me there.
Been a little while.
Yeah, it's been a little bit, but
Yeah.
yeah, I was able to attain my State Seal of Civic Engagement thanks to her and all the work and support that I've gotten from a lot of people and my mentors, so.
We also got a tour of the Adult Learning Center, and we also learned a lot about the services that are available there. I had no idea, actually being a member of the community, that we had an Adult Learning Center until I had gone home to my parents, and my dad, he actually told me that he went there in order to get his citizenship, and he would study there a lot. So that felt really personal to me. I didn't know that there was such great services like that, even though it's very small, very mighty. And with that opportunity, I actually took it to go take my little brother to go get his library card, and we have now been going every month to go get him some books, and I'll sit down with him and I'll try to teach him how to read and stuff. And the space that they now have for our library. I think it's very useful, but it was a very useful opportunity to learn about the little places in our community that are there to help. Now, this was one of my favorite presentations that we've had. It was really inspirational to hear. His name is Salvador, and he's vice mayor of Delano. I felt he was very inspirational. Es de la raza for me. And it was very inspiring to see someone from my community in a position of power in that way, and especially so young. And he had a nonprofit for tobacco prevention. That was his presentation that he had given us. So it was very inspirational for me to get that presentation from him, especially because he's talking to our city council youth, spreading that message to the youth. Obviously, it is a big problem in adults, but it's also a problem for our youth, especially in our community. So coming over to give us that presentation, I felt was very useful and just very inspiring in general. And we don't have the slide up, but this was our last meeting that we had, which was from Donnie Moore. So I really enjoyed his presentation. His wife actually works at the school that I go to at Summit Charter. And it was just a really good opportunity to hear from him. I'm currently trying to look for a job right now. So his tips and everything was very useful.
And if I could add on to that, I also really liked that meeting because I felt like it was a more personal, really amazing opportunity to ask Donnie, somebody who's well-known in the community and knows a lot about life, some specific things that can help us succeed in the future. And I think one takeaway that was really big to me was to always work hard, regardless of who's watching. And you shouldn't really focus on who's watching, like whether there's a person there or not. You should always have that dedication and sincerity. And there was a specific time where he said he saw this kid who was in cross country. He was running on, I think, Saturday evenings, if I'm correct. And just noticing that a person's dedication over and over again, that boy didn't know who was watching him. So I think that I always think about that you always do every single task and every single plan with passion and dedication and just with honesty. So I want to thank Donnie for that. Thank you. And thank you for listening to us today.
Well, I want to say thank you, and it's something that all youth need to know, that we are available through Mr. Moore. If there's ever any question that you wish to pursue, aim high, because you could be seated up here yourselves. But there are processes by attending city council meetings to see the decisions that are made and ask the questions before coming to a meeting. And even through your schools, if you have a question and it's something that you need to know, they will work with the city staff, and we can be able of service as long as it's okay with your parents. We can help you. So, council, any comments? Thank you very much for that
you so
report. It
much.
is appreciated. Okay, we'll move on.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Okay, Two Talk. Do we have a Two Talk report this evening? No? Okay, we'll now move on to the staff informational reports.
Thank you, Your Honor. So tonight, we have two staff informational reports. We have a water conservation Phase 4 status update report, as well as a proclamation issuance report. Staff's available to provide a report or answer any questions.
Did council have time to look at this? Any questions? It's pretty self-explanatory.
Just one quick question.
Councilmember, go ahead.
I think it's great to see the conservation efforts made by the residents of Porterville year after year, really keeping their eyes on conservation and not overusing water. There's probably, this is on average for our city, correct? This is average conservation. So there's some people that use a lot less and some that use a lot more. Some lawns may be greener and some browner. And that's usually intentional by the property owner. I just want to encourage everybody within the city to continue to practice water conservation measures. And I know a brown yard doesn't look very nice because I have one, and I've had a green yard before, and it's worth the effort to live with a brown yard. I've got a neighbor that took up all his grass and he's redoing his whole front yard. And, I applaud the effort. But for those that have a problem with it, if there's anything the city can do to help, I'm sure we're available to help. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the consent calendar. All consent calendar items are considered routine and will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these matters unless a request is made, in which event the item will be removed from the consent calendar. All items removed from the consent calendar for further discussion will be heard at the end of scheduled matters. We have items 1 through 13. If there are no noted conflicts or any items or any questions for review, how does council wish to proceed?
Make a motion to
Mayor,
accept. Oh, pardon me?
Mayor, if I may?
Oh, please.
I have one quick correction. On item 6, within the staff report, there's a typographical error. It should be the new population is 62,934. The recommendation and the letter is correct. There was just,
It's correct on the agenda.
correct.
With the noted correction, we have, Councilmember Wyrick, you will proceed 1 through 13?
Yeah, I'd be happy to
Okay.
make a motion
We have
for,
a motion for items 1 through
13.
13,
I second.
and a second by Councilmember Meister. Call for the vote. Passes unanimous, 5-0. Thank you. We'll now move on to public hearing number 14.
Thank you, Your Honor. I've asked Assistant City Manager Michael Knight to provide this item.
Thank you, Mr. Ridenour, Mayor, members of council. At this time and place, this is a time and place to conduct a public hearing regarding the transition from Phase 4 to Phase 3 of the city's water conservation plan. The summer months are approaching, naturally increasing water consumption needs for outdoor use. Reduced production guidelines presented by the governor's executive orders and subsequent regulations adopted by the State Water Resource Control Board requires that the city of Porterville report cumulative totals of production conservation less than the production of 2013 as shared in tonight's informational report. City Council has implemented a 26% conservation measure as so to assist the water system and allow for future growth in the city, not to mention being partnered with the State Water Board in the consolidation efforts of small water systems within the urban development boundary, promoting safe drinking water and improving community and quality of life. The community has been and continues to be instrumental in meeting the goal the goal that was established for conservation by the state and adopted by City Council. Through the implementation of mandatory reductions, the City of Porterville has been able to produce a cumulative total GPCD, gallons per capita day, reduction of 25% through the month of May 2024. The purpose of tonight's public hearing is to discuss the transitioning from Phase 4, 1-day-a-week watering schedule, to Phase 3, 2-day-a-week watering schedule. Phase 3 will allow odd addresses to water on Tuesday and Saturday, and even addresses on Wednesday and Sunday, while maintaining the time limitations of 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Although receiving significant rain totals during the 2023 water year, we have experienced significant variations from year to year. Staff continues to monitor groundwater levels to provide council with the best information to make decisions in the best interest of the city. Staff is also continuing to implement conservation monitoring and anticipates future reports to council identifying groundwater stabilization. Until that time, staff recommends a continued message to the residents of Porterville. With that, staff recommends to conduct a public hearing to consider the transition from Phase 4 to Phase 3 of the city's water conservation plan effective June 1, 2024, and consider directing staff to transition from Phase 3 to Phase 4 effective October 1st, 2024. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and move. It is 6:52. I will open up the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to come forth on this item for public hearing number 14? Do we have anyone on virtually?
No, Your Honor.
It is 6:53. I will close the public hearing and bring it to council. How does council wish to proceed? Councilmember Beltran, any comment, any questions?
I'll just make a brief comment. This is something, before I got on council, I always kind of was curious how this was all done. And over the past year and a half of learning, it's not necessarily the city's, this would be a regulation, but at the same time, this is all through the state. There's a lot of man-made problems, I guess. There's not a lot of infrastructure for retaining water like we just had, last year with the flooding to capture that water. But there's a lot of regulations still coming down through the state. And although, we live in the foothills and we've had some good snowpacks the last couple of years, this doesn't change the way our state manages our water. This goes back to our looking forward with the tertiary plant and possibly expanding that, not just out there at the sports complex and with the tribe, but for our city to try and get the most use of every drop of water in our community. This isn't just a Porterville thing, this is all over the whole state. I'm thankful the area we live in was mostly agriculture, so there's a lot of water in our area, and we're not a big city in LA trying to figure out how are we gonna get water and what's that gonna cost our residents. So we understand it's a little bit of a sacrifice, but just know that water is a finite item. We can't make it necessarily. And so just trying to inform the public. I was on that side of going, I want to water my grass every day, or if I want to wash my car on a certain day, what's the big deal? Overall, it just comes down to trying to conserve as best we can. We've had a drought in, 2015, and I saw a lot of those families. We don't want to go through that, and thankfully, we're not regulated like some other communities where the state has to come in because the jurisdictions weren't managing the water properly, because like I said, at the end, we'll either pay the price by either paying fines or that right will be taken away because the state ultimately has a say on what happens with water. So just continue to try to educate the community. Is like I had to go through that learning curve myself to understand the bigger goal of this is a shared resource that we have to make sure, we live in an agriculture community, make sure that we've got water for food, but also just for just a good, safe life here. So with that, just thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Wyrock?
Thank you. Just a couple of brief comments. In the report, we have the production cumulative total 20% color graph, and it shows the April production comparison to the 2013 and a 5-year average. On that chart through April 24, can you tell us what period? I don't recall the last time we were in phase 3. And once we went to phase 3, that additional day of watering, was there a big bump in this chart? Was it last May and June? Like showing here, month 5 and 6?
Just for clarification, is it production or GPCD you're referencing?
I'm looking at maybe not the correct one. There's monthly production status.
Yeah. So there's two. There's one based off of individual use, so gallons per capita day, and then there's overall production, which is what's extracted number.
Okay.
So that one there, we can look at that.
Sure. So in January, was it last June we were?
So last June, we
Up to-
we transitioned, so council has been consistent with the efforts on phasing, and so generally, June 1st, we transition, and then we transition back in October.
Even though last year in September, we saw a reduction in consumption, and then when we rolled into the next phase in October, we were conserving and we met our goals. Yes?
Yes. And it really is dependent on the weather. We see that. If it tends to be a cooler month, we do see less consumption. If it's a warmer month, I mean, we've had months go all the way into September where they are warm, and we do see that consumption number spike. It's important to note, so if you see the blue portion on the backside of the graph there, that represents 2013. And so conservation mandates were implemented in 2014. We started seeing the drought come in 2013, 2014, we were full swing. About midway through 2014, the state implemented mandatory conservation measures. We brought that to council. That's when we started implementing the mandatory schedule, and we started seeing this drop off. So when we look at this, that gap between the existing consumption and that solid blue area, that's been the improvement of conservation.
Thank you. No other comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Meister?
Well, as we've seen, this is the new form of tyranny that I say through the state in regulating water, and they use the city as the hand of the overreach. My thoughts are, I'm with water conservation. I think it's very important, especially in the area we live in with the ag industry, and we need to be, we value water, and we want to conserve water to the very best of our capabilities. But something that Councilmember Wyrock kind of brought up, and I want to feed on it, is having trust for the people. And so as we see those months that are, when we're still in phase 4, and it's like a wet month, people still aren't watering as much. They're regulating themselves. And so my thought is, what if we could maybe put some trust in the people to self-regulate? Now, I'm not saying that we go to phase 1, but instead of in October going to phase 4, we stayed in phase 3. What kind of consequences, or what do you think I don't know if side effect would be the right word here, but what do you think the long term? Will we violate the 26%, or do you think we'll still be within the realms of Sigma? And 26 is the city's self.
Correct.
What is the actual Sigma?
So right.
It's 20, right?
So Sigma is a extraction number based on the acreage of service. So Sigma doesn't necessarily have a regulation of conservation. It's what the city's available groundwater extraction is. So it's a budget, if you will, of available groundwater to serve the community. But as we talk about the conservation measures, I absolutely agree that we are getting to a point where we can start making different decisions about how we manage the conservation. I think we will come to a point where we can deviate from the current message. The reason for staff's recommendation is it may be too premature to do that. And the only reason why I state that is in the other two attachments. For one, we attached the DWR precipitation log from their website in here. And you can see, you know, there's no doubt that 2023 was the third wettest year on record.
Yeah.
But the concern, and the city did as much as they could to recharge and hold some of that water locally. And you see that reflective in the next attachment, which is our standing water sheet. So as we look at this handout and walk through this, we have the state reporting no areas impacted by drought currently. And that's great. That's great for all those dependent on groundwater. But it's a little bit premature to make that determination, at least from an operation standpoint for the city of Porterville, and in the best interest of sustainability and assurances for the groundwater stabilization. When we look at what the past has shown us, we go from the 2017 was a wet year, and then 2018 was dry, 2019 was wet. And then you have 2020 and 2021 year in there, so 2020, 2021 was the driest year on record. So we go from a wet year, a dry year, a wet year, and then the driest year on record. And then we come up to some higher wet years, right?
Yeah.
I apologize. And that is reflective, and you can see that in the sounding sheet. So you see when we come into the drought in 2012, experiencing it in 2013, implementation was 2014. We bottomed out through 2016. You see the rain and precip and recharge efforts in 2017 where it comes up. Now we continue to do the same effort in 2019. And those efforts were reflective in the following year. So we see the 2019 efforts into 2020. And then we have that slow dip into 21, which is, again, that's where the driest year on record was. And then now we have another wet year, which is great. We're peaking right now. So the recommendation comes as, I think we just need to let's give it some time. And let's have this serious conversation going into next year and see it stabilize through this year and continue to hold there. And then that gives us the flexibility and the assurances we need to make sure when we change our message, because once you have a program and people, dialed in on, they know when it's going to change, they know what to expect. If once we change that, it'll be hard to get the messaging all back out again. So just before we make that drastic change, I'd like to leave it there once we implement it. And so just another look at this after this season will give us the ability to make those good decisions and make council comfortable and the operations staff on how the wells are going to respond and what the water table is doing. All that information will come together to provide better answers and information to council.
I understand, and thank you for that advice. And you're the water guy. There's no doubt, we have to lean on the expert in some of these areas, right? Because I'm not a water guy. My only thought, and this is just my opinion, if we were to motion forward and leave out the second part of the recommendation and revisit again in October, would that be outside of the realm of what you're requesting, or?
No, that's definitely something we could do.
That's just my suggestion. Of course, it's up to council, and I know, Madam Mayor, you haven't got a chance, or Madam Vice Mayor, to speak on it as well. So that's my
Vice Mayor.
humble opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Those comments were really helpful, and a few points that I wanted to make, you said much better than I could have, but I think building off of what Councilmember Beltran had started talking about, let me move this a little closer. I'm just really grateful, outside of the state's regulations, but in thinking about what we deal with at the city, I'm really grateful to have learned over the past years more about the status of our water and how we access that, how we secure it, how we plan and prepare. I feel like it's gradual and thoughtful. And I, just some of the projects that we do, for me, I feel like water is our most valuable resource. We can't live without water. And during my time here, we've had presentations and requests to support other communities in other areas that don't have water or don't have drinkable water. And I think from my very first meeting, there was discussion around the securing additional shares of water or wells and repairing those wells. And then as the tertiary plant started out there by the casino and projects were going on throughout the city was already putting in the purple piping where that water will eventually run through. So I think it's been years and years and years of planning and preparing only for our citizens to be secured with water, because there are nearby cities that didn't almost have water at all. And so I wouldn't really, I don't personally view it as an excess water. I feel like it's there for us so that when we need it, we can pull from it, and that all our homes have water, our homes have clean water, and our community has access to water. So I'm really grateful as we get these reports. And yes, the state's regulations are very frustrating, but I think what I notice our staff do is just keep planning ahead. If there's some type of technology or preparation, they're already looking ahead at that. And I don't look at it as, us having to do all these things because of the state. I look at it as, well, if we're going to end up there, at least we'll be ahead of the game, we'll be prepared, and we'll be secured with to me, our most valuable resource. That's my comments.
Thank you. I want to go back to the year 2015, 2016, when it was the discussion of the Sustainability Groundwater Agency and the discussion of Sigma. And then I want to also go back to the year that when I came onto council in 2016, all the homes by the previous council on the east side were hooked up and connected to water. They came and there was a plea in the surrounding community and how the city of Porterville immediately sought the resources to try to help and accommodate the families. Serving on the Water Commission, which is a different window, and I'll report out later on, I have heard of the stresses of the smaller communities that have no access to water, and their water is tainted, it's contaminated, and the stresses that they have to go through just so that they can have water provided in their homes, and the wells that have been destroyed and wells that are being placed. So when I hear this and have been a part of the history to where it's at for conservation, none of us, I like to water, but I can't. I have no lawn. And that was simple. I made the choice. But that was a choice and that I made. Others can handle it differently, but there's no, I'm grateful that we have this and that we do have the staff who have been able to take care of it. You made mention of the tertiary treatment. Again, that is another step that the city of Porterville has done. You have a school district that has highlighted that they're running out of water, that they have contaminated water, and that it's in the surrounding area, and that the city of Porterville is communicating and trying. But again, you think of an additional day, you think of an extra day to water. I see it on a larger scale. I see it on the scale of an immediate. We need to take care of all members of the community for all the overall quality of life and to see where it is we're going to go from here. We have had drought. We've experienced the floods. I see this as a venue to continue the process and keep it through, just keep it, and then bring it back at another time when it's next year. So that's my comment. So how does council wish to proceed?
I don't know, Greg, if you wanted to do yours, because I was just going to do the one here, but I'll allow that opportunity if you wanted to do that one.
I don't think I have the votes. Just listening.
Just wanted to offer.
You want me to make a motion?
Well, it's up to you.
I'd like to make a motion for just to go forward with the first recommendation. Second recommendation, I'd like to revisit going from Phase 3 to Phase 4 in October. Is that a fair motion, Julia? Thank you.
Council, just so also just to provide back history, previously we would transition in December. So that was kind of the time, that'll be the timeline that the variation. So it's either October or December when we transitioned in the past. So just to provide that history on what we've done previously.
Okay, so would it be better to ask for the motion to go revisit in December?
No,
Is that when
just giving you the backstory as you're making your motion. So we're talking about going either in October or December. So you're only going to get either October and November watering. You're only going to get 2 more months. So I just wanted to provide that.
Yeah.
Because we would usually transition before the rain season, as definitely is what we've done in the past.
Why don't you revisit in October? That way you can review it and consider, have it brought in October to consider going back, and then you can decide whether you want to extend or not at that
So
time.
my apologies, speaking out of turn, I just wanted to provide the back history.
I gotcha.
No apologies. We need you guys to speak up in certain moments, right? So I appreciate that. so that would be my motion, that we revisit in October and go over it. That's my motion. And going with original staff recommendation to go from Phase 4 to Phase 3 watering.
So if I'm not getting this right, it's basically kind of the same recommendation?
Yeah, other than,
Okay.
because consider directing staff to transition from Phase 3 to Phase 4.
Okay, to revisit,
He's got a prospective end date in there for
Gotcha,
the
okay.
phase, yeah.
okay. I'll second that, and if Don has a question after that.
Yeah, my question was it last year we transitioned in December and not October?
No, it's been a few years ago.
Been a few years
It's
ago.
been a few years since we deferred to December as a transition date.
And we
So
moved it
if-
up just for the spirit of conservation and trying to save some water as we enter the fall, not knowing how the rains are going to come down.
Correct. So we had noticed previously that generally the month of October, it starts to rain in the month of October, and then experiencing it cooling off through the month of November. So we pulled that conservation transition date back to October to try to accrue more conservation numbers in there. And so that was the effort on pulling it to October versus December 1. It's been a few years since we've done that. So, I mean, I wanted to provide the context.
The reason I was asking is you mentioned earlier that the consistency of our messaging to the community is very important. And we've invested a lot of effort to get us to where we are today, starting a long time ago, as the mayor suggested or mentioned when she was getting involved and Sigma was introduced to our city. Would this detract from that messaging to delay just the trigger of, cutting back again in October?
No, it's.
Neutral?
Yeah, no, that's
Okay.
what we've been doing. So with this action tonight, and I appreciate council allowing me to explain some of the details behind this process. So with council's action tonight, artists go to work tomorrow because we have to change all of our advertisement. So all of our radio ads get changed. The flyers we're waiting for this tonight to then send flyers out tomorrow because it'll take a week to go out. It's about $15,000 to send that flyer out. So when we get that sent out, that triggers everything. So the message on that will align. But if we change this and we change the process to deviate from what's in the staff report tonight, means I've come back with an item in September so that we can have that discussion to whether or not I have to change all the advertisement in advance of that, or I can leave it longer. If we leave it longer, it just, that changing point is where the expenditures and the changes in the messaging goes out. So just to provide some.
You just found a way I could save $30,000 for the city. We just stay in Phase 3.
Well, I was just going to suggest, we don't know what the weather's going to be like this fall. We don't know what the summer's going to be like. We've been fortunate, blessed, prayers answered, that we had a real wet winter. Aquifers are coming up. Do we want to flip the switch and just start using water? And I'm okay.
I'd like to make a
just
comment to bring
quick
back.
observation. Thank you.
I'm going to make a comment to bring back to the history of that, because this same scenario was brought back to city council at one time before with regard to bringing it back at a later date and not making the decision this evening. Making the decision, and I'm not telling you which way to do this, making the decision authorizes staff to immediately transition effective that date, and it's more cost-effective to that regard versus having to make the changes, and it takes more of the staffing and more of the clerical and more of the dollar amount in the preparation. So that is my comment, but this exact conversation, worded a little differently, was brought back a few years ago, and it was, once again, delaying the process, and you're still doing it, but it's costing you more to put it out. So I'm just making that comment. This has been brought to the table before.
Go ahead, Don.
Please. Well, I was just, thank you, Madam Mayor, for that comment.
could staff alter maybe the recommendation a little bit to simplify it? If it's council's decision to prolong the transition of Phase 3, past practice has been transitioning it December 1. So if council doesn't want to transition October 1, then maybe you ask to amend the final recommendation to transition December 1. But we're essentially talking the 2 months. So to stay in Phase 3, effective June 1st, and transition December 1, it keeps us in a program to where we send the messaging out one time. And, I mean, either way, we're either going to send it out, transition back October 1, or if council wishes to change the date to December 1, then we can put that out when we send our messaging out and say, we'll transition back to Phase 4, December 1. I mean, that may simplify the process, rather than having to come back and conduct another public hearing. That was really what the effort in this recommendation was, is to not to have multiple public hearings to review it, when we can kind of streamline the process, have the open discussion, and establish a transitional phase.
Okay, so that is my motion. I like that. Thank you.
All right,
Direct-
wait a minute,
or
we have a
Assistant City
motion,
Manager.
okay, we have a motion, and I would like that, well, correct, but I would, if that is Councilmember Meister's motion, could you frame it, legal counsel, to what was just stated? Yeah, but we want legal counsel to frame it.
So it's to go ahead and authorize the transition from 4 to 3 as of June 1st, and then to consider directing staff to transition from Phase 3 to Phase 4 effective December 1.
December 1.
That would be the motion. If that's what you want to do.
Okay.
So there's the motion, and it's still a second.
Yeah, and I still second that, yeah.
Question?
Well, I'm conducting the meeting. There's no further discussion. That is where I'm going with it. So we have a motion. Once again, I ask legal counsel to frame it because it will not bring back another public hearing, and we have authorized it to change effective December the 1st, and that still stays 3 to 4 for the second. All right, here we go. Call for the vote.
Question.
One more question, that's all.
We can always open another public hearing if situations develop to where we have a concern, and this isn't going to lock us into this. I mean, is this ironclad?
No, council could always direct to be brought back.
Thank
You
you.
can change your mind.
Thank you.
And that
Thank you.
discussion will be had at the informational items. If there's any alarm, we can have that discussion during those informational items, and that would trigger staff to bring back an
All
item.
it means is if you don't do anything, it will go back
Yeah.
on December 1st.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this will be a fun, we'll be able to look at the years in the past and look at what the people do over that 2 months and be able to see on those graphs. I think it'll be interesting to see in the long run. Just wanted to make that point.
Okay, call for the vote. It fails, 3-2. Okay. So that motion has failed. And do we take another, do we keep the original staff recommendation?
Can I make a motion?
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion on the original recommendation that we consider the transition from Phase 4 to Phase 3 of the City Water Conservation Plan effective June 1st, 2024, and transition from Phase 3 to Phase 4 effective October 1st, 2024.
I'll second. Call for the vote. Passes 4-1. Thank you. We will now move on to number 15.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tonight, we also have a public hearing to have the Crestview Park Residential Development reviewed. I've asked Director Calderon to provide their staff report.
Good evening, and I am deferring to our contracted city planner, Jeff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. Back in 2008, the City Council approved the original Crestview subdivision on this location It was a 45-lot subdivision. Due to the various mechanisms of the Subdivision Map Act, that project expired in 2019 without a final map ever having been filed. Pardon me. The subdivider has brought back a similar map that proposes to subdivide the 10-acre site south of Putnam Avenue and east of North Crestview and Olive Crest into 46 lots for single-family development. The project site is designated as low-density residential by the general plan, and it's zoned RS2. The lots would range from 6 to 11,000 square feet, and it meets all of the requirements of the Porterville Development Ordinance related to the zoning. It would have external connections to Olive Crest and Putnam, and there would be improvements to sections of both of those streets that include parkway strips and pedestrian walks adjacent to the project site. The project's density is 4.6 units per acre, which is less than the maximum of 6 units per acre that would be allowed under the general plan designation. The areas to the north and west of the site are developed with single-family residences, and adjacent to the south is the cemetery district, while land to the east supports rural residences and agricultural uses. The overall development pattern is compatible with what is in the area as well as the densities prescribed by the general plan. The project was subject to an initial study and mitigated negative declaration under CEQA. The circulation of that document to local agencies and through the state clearinghouse ran from April 8, well, it was received on April 18th. It ran from April 19th through May 20, so that it didn't fall on a holiday. The Subdivision Map Act provides a series of findings such that if any of those findings is made in the affirmative, the City Council cannot approve the map. Staff does not believe that any of those findings can be made, and thus we would make the opposite findings, which is an odd quirk of the Subdivision Map Act, but that's how it works. So staff believes that those findings can be made based on the evidence in the record. The project, if approved, would provide much-needed housing in the eastern part of town in particular, and it is consistent with the general plan and would help to implement the general plan housing element. Notice of this hearing was provided in accordance with the Porterville Development Ordinance as well as Government Code Section 65090 and 091. It did go through Project Review Committee, and that concludes staff's report at this time. I do believe that the project engineer is online if council has any questions for the applicant's side. We would request that you open the hearing to the public. We would take any questions from you, following which we would request that you adopt the resolution adopting the initial study mitigated negative declaration, as well as the resolution approving the vesting tentative map. Thank you.
Thank you. I will go ahead and open up the public hearing. It is 7:26. Is there anyone that would like to come forth on this item?
Hi, Council. My name's Mike Tyler.
Would you please remove your cap as you address council, please?
Excuse me?
I'm asking if you would kindly remove your cap as you address us.
Oh, my hat?
Yeah.
If you can
Thank
stand
you.
my
So
hair?
that's
I don't
okay.
care.
So we can see you. Thank you so much.
Right on. Like I said, my name is Mike Tyler. My wife and I own the property on the corner of Crestview and Putnam. And I do have a few questions as to, you know, the road redress or whatever. Right now, it's a very short section of two-way street and a very long section of one-way street. Is that going to be made two-way all the way down or just to the end of the project?
Once we close the public hearing, they can respond to your questions. They're writing it down. In other words, if you have more questions, they will
Okay, so
go.
it's not a question and answer?
No,
Oh.
no. They are taking notes. Please stop the clock and give them a couple more, okay?
All right.
'Cause-
I've got a few concerns. I mean,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Go ahead, because you didn't know, and just so that you're aware of it, we'll start the clock again, and that way you can ask all of your
How
questions.
much time is there?
3 minutes, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay. Is there going to be a perimeter wall around the project? Are the stub outs for the Crestview side of the project, or is that going to be from Crestview, or is that internal to the project itself? Who am I to deal with for the acquisition of my property for the construction of the road? City or the developer? Will I be made to hook up to city services? Right now I'm on well and sewer. And if I am, who's responsible for those costs? And is the property currently city? And if so, when was that done? That should do it. Will I be able to, address when I get answers?
I'm looking at legal counsel.
Answers beget questions.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, already.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else that would like, please do so, okay.
My name is Julie Pearson, and I live at the end of East Putnam. So my property would be to the very east of the project. There's a Butler building that would be adjacent to the new project. And my question would be the same. Is there going to be some kind of division wall or separation? I also have been there 28 years. I have horses and cattle. And I'm wondering I looked at their report, and it's like they haven't acknowledged that I'm there. They say I'm vacant land, but my home, I have 5 acres, and I'm there. So I haven't had any contact with anybody. I did receive the letters about the project. And I think my questions would be the same on access for these 46 homes. I can't even imagine the traffic. Because I'm at the end of a one-way street. Is there going to be some kind of traffic control? I'm just not sure from what I read how things are going to proceed. So that was one of my questions. The other is the water situation. I can't even imagine 46 new homes going there, but because of the east side's problems, we haven't had anything lately, but we did a couple of years back. So I'm trying to think of any other things. And our palm trees. How many palm trees are they going to take out on Putnam? Those are 100-year-old trees. And it's kind of a shame that they keep getting whittled down as we improve our city. But that's most of my questions. I hope we have another chance to hear from the developer on our questions.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
It
thank
is
you.
appreciated. Your comments are appreciated. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward? Please do so now. Do we have anyone on virtually?
No, Your Honor.
All right, it is 7:31. We are closing the public hearing. Oh, I apologize. Okay, Mr. Vang.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner, City Council members, Ken Vang, Corporate Consulting Engineers. We're the applicant representative for this project. We proposed this 46 lot subdivision. We changed the layout a little bit from the previous, but it's very similar. To answer some of the questions, we will propose a wood fence along all the property lines. I believe block wall along the Crestview with some landscaping on the exterior. As far as the construction of the roads, we're conditioned as part of the project to widen out Crestview along our property frontage, and as well as Putnam along our property frontage to make it 2 lanes along our property frontage. All those existing palm trees that are on our property will be removed. As part of the CEQA analysis, there is no discovery or determination that the palm trees have any historical significance. Nothing was identified for the palm trees. We will make this 2 lanes, and then as far as extending and widening the road further towards Mr. Taylor's property. At the moment, there's nothing in the conditions, or we're not proposing to do that. That's beyond our property frontage. Eventually, when that property subdivides, when it develops, there'll be conditioned by the city to continue to make those improvements as well. And then I believe some of the questions about the annexation boundary, I believe this, maybe the city staff can address that, but as far as Ms. Pearson's property to the east, I believe just this property is annexed. I believe her property is still in the county.
I didn't want to interrupt while he was
Please go
talking.
ahead, because it wasn't clear, and
Yes.
some of the responses were not clear. And audience that asked the questions were not able to hear clearly as those of us on the dais. And we didn't hear all of it. Did city staff or city staff able to hear any of it? Some of it? Most of it? Okay, well, you have ample. Would you like to interpret for us?
Well, the notes I wrote down is there will be a wooden fence and some landscape put around those perimeters and I believe what you're discussing, your property there. There was going to be a, yeah, they're going to, the Crestview is going to be 2 lanes, widening of also of Putnam. The trees will be removed. It didn't say all the way down, it says the trees on that development area will be removed. And I believe that the trees do extend further back, but as far as the development area, those ones will be removed.
Okay, now, Mr. Vang has been working with staff, and could you please clarify some of the comments that were made? Mr. Beltran, thank you, council member.
Okay, do we have a complete list of the questions? We can answer, so this is in the city. I don't know off the top of my head when it was annexed, but it's not recently. It's been in the city for quite some time, which we can find that out and give you that information if you'd still like to know.
Mr. O'Neill, will you please turn your microphone on?
Sorry.
The project site was received in 2008. The project's site was received in 2008, so it had to have been annexed before then, right?
Presumably it was, and it's possible that it was annexed as part of that original tentative map approval. That's speculation. It was either annexed as part of that, and then the map died due to inactivity, but the annexation would have remained, or it was just annexed prior to that. So one way or the other, it was either prior to 2008 or as a part of the project in 2008. And it was annexed in 1979. Javier, thank you. And I think Javier can speak to a lot of the questions specifically related to boundary improvements and street improvements, which is why I'm glad he's always here.
Yeah, so to answer the street improvements on Putnam Avenue, they are expected to just be along the project boundary, so it would not include that corner lot, which you had mentioned you're the owner of, right, sir? That very corner at Putnam and Crestview? Well, it's...
Dude, you know that is literally people are pulling up in my yard now with the limited traffic.
Right, and...
Much less, now that you're going to add potentially 100 vehicles into that neighborhood.
Right, and so in looking at it, it wouldn't make sense to include that frontage along Putnam, because east of the gentleman's property, it will be widened to a full-width road. And then it would have to taper back to the existing. The good part of this, there'll be circulation within the subdivision to get in and out of there. And so hopefully the trips are limited to that subdivision And then it would cut down on the amount of traffic east of the project simply because there'd be a wider road for half of that stretch. Yes. Go ahead.
A project of this size generally doesn't necessitate or qualify for a,
It was a nightmare twice a day due to the schools.
You know what? We,
To say it,
please,
unless the council authorizes, this really needs to be a discussion between the staff and the council at this point, because the public hearing portion is closed.
thank you, that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to state, and the public hearing is closed, and we need to address this, okay? We need to, council needs to address and have conversation with staff. And I'm looking at the council members on the dais. Do you have any questions? Please
Yeah,
start.
I wish I was a little more familiar with the area. I know Olive Avenue is getting some road work done in that area. Is it Crestview? Yeah. So Crestview going north, there's not even a possibility for widening, right? Because there's homes on each side? Is that? So.
well, yes, it can get widened to the north. Putnam can't get widened to the north, no. And
We're going to
So-
continue the conversation between council members and staff, and I'm going to ask audience to please, if comes to a point where staff needs to communicate directly with you, they will, but not during the meeting. Please continue.
So my understanding, we're going to have a block wall on Olive Crest and Putnam? Is just Olive Crest? And then the wood fencing would be along his property line there to the east and along Putnam? And then the backside of the property coming down? Along Julie's property there to the east?
there would, typically, there would just be a wooden fence between
Okay.
a residential property and another property that's intended for future residential use.
Gotcha. And then, yeah, so the option for widening Crestview just isn't there. Ultimately, now I'm going to go into my opinion. We want to see homes developed in Porterville. I don't want to push away developers. We have a housing shortage in the state of California and in the city of Porterville. So my views on that, you know, we are meeting the city ordinances as far as block walls and fencing. You are annexed into the city, and so you have a well, you're on that, but I don't believe we're forcing him to go on to city water, correct? That's your option. And then the palm trees, it saddens me to hear, 100-year-old palm trees going down, but part of the growth is sometimes these things have to happen. So it hurts me even more when I see oaks go down. So I feel your pain, but it's part of the growth, and I just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other Councilmember Beltran?
I'll just make a comment that I hope that staff will continue to work with the residents in that area to hopefully get some more answers for some of their questions. I'm sure staff will be reaching out to you guys to follow up. But as Councilman Meister said, it's meeting all the ordinances, everything's in line. This is a problem we've had with some other development in the community where residents in the area are a little upset about that. And unfortunately, that's just the pain of the growth of our community. But staff will take those questions and they'll be in communication with you. And if there's any other things that we can do, reach out to us. Our numbers are public, and just if you want to email us but staff will answer all the questions. Obviously, we're leaning on staff for those questions too, so they'll be great at walking you through those steps. And the developers here in the public meeting to also try and answer your guys' questions.
Okay. Councilmember Wyrock?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was reading in the report that there's the city council must deny a tentative map if it makes any of the following findings, and there's 7. And item 7 just speaks to any conflict with easements acquired by the public at large for access through or use of the property. Are there any easements on the backside of the property where it's kind of cut off to, from Putnam south, and then it goes to the west? Any easements back there, and are we respectful of those easements?
There are no easements illustrated on the tentative map. As we go through the final mapping process, assuming that the tentative map gets approved, if there are any easements that do exist that aren't reflected on this, then the final map would have to be adjusted accordingly to account for those easements.
And that's the developer's responsibility and not the council's or the city's at that later date?
Correct. The developer, in working with Javier's team and the contract city surveyor, who would ultimately determine that the final map complies with the requirements of the tentative map. So,
Item 5 talks about if the project would unavoidably injure fish or wildlife or their habitat. Is there a study of creatures that might use those palm trees, like owls or, any nesting? Is there any kind of nesting requirements?
There is a mitigation measure in the CEQA document that deals with nesting bird surveys prior to initiation of construction.
Thank you. And then Putnam Avenue going eastward, what's the long-term general plan for that? 2 lanes, 4 lanes? What's at this time, is there a plan for that development of that blue line right at the city limits until we annex more property?
Let me look that up for you real quickly.
Well, I was just curious because, the palm trees, if the property line on Putnam Avenue that's on the north side of the property were to shift southward, and the palm trees could become an item in the median, even if it's 2 lanes, be a nice little thoroughfare with the trees there, and after they die, maybe they could get replaced with the nice oaks. But I just don't know what the Putnam Avenue's long-term plan is.
Our circulation element listed as a local road, so it was developed to the old 60-foot wide standard versus our new 56-foot wide right-of-way. So as a continuation of that, it'd be built out to a 60-foot right-of-way, which would be 2 lanes.
2 lanes, and so to add a median would really encroach on the project and actually realign Putnam towards the south a little bit, wouldn't it?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, in the package here, there's, with the resolution for the council tonight, there was, give me just a second, let me turn to it. A total of 63 items in here, and it's a solid package, a lot of good information. Is this did we add anything to the typical package that we've seen up here? Is there, number 38 or 37 that we haven't seen before? Or is this just the general template that we use for most residential developments within the city?
Good question. So there are a number of what I guess we would call stock or standard conditions. Things like, once you have an approved tentative map, you can prepare a final map for recordation, that sort of thing. Then there are a lot of contextual or project-specific conditions that would be necessitated for a project like this, perhaps, but not for another project, or vice versa. So anything that's very specific to the geography, the location, the proximity of utilities, the street condition, all those sorts of things, those conditions of approval can vary project by project based on the comments that we get from the various departments.
Great. I like 34, I like 31, the building permit shall not proceed further than the installation of the foundation until all the following items are completed. So it looks like they're going to really dress up the project before we issue the permits. And then prior to recording the final subdivision map, they'll provide surety for offsite improvements and provide easements, permits, blah, 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 as typically noted in these reports. So that's really good to see. One other quick thing, there was some discussion earlier about a well, and we've been talking a lot about water tonight. Will there be a water main extension coming up Putnam, or is it already there feeding into Ruth Street, or will they bring water in off of Olive? And the reason I ask is groundwater is really important to us, and I don't know if there'd be money or whatever to extend the water line down Putnam and make it available to some of these lots to the east of the property. I know we've set up these sewer and water districts before, but for somebody who lives on a corner with a well, for them to tie into city water, should we be bringing it through that intersection, might be timely for them and maybe the most affordable that it could ever be, should they want to abandon their well and hook up to city water. So just a quick question. There's probably no real answer.
Oh, and I'll let Mr. Knight talk about this in more eloquent manner. There are existing water mains in the street adjacent to this site.
Okay.
There is a condition of approval that does require that the developer provides a certain minimum pressure and fire flow. If there are other improvements that are required in order to meet that, then the project will be responsible for those. But Michael will say.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you.
I will
Thank you,
answer
Madam
all
Mayor.
questions previously directed to Mr. Knight.
Please. Okay, go ahead.
I know you want an opportunity to speak. After 12:34 reports, there's another opportunity for oral communication at the end of the meeting, just so you're aware.
I don't understand that, I'm sorry.
At the end of the meeting, there's another opportunity to have to give your message, to speak, oral communication. There's another opportunity towards the end of the meeting for the public to speak.
Vice Mayor?
I think a lot of the questions that you asked, we also wrote notes down, so tried to ask also, maybe not clarified though. But one of the things that you did ask was, who will they deal with if they have questions or issues come up, the city or the developer?
The city attorney may want to opine on this after I speak, but generally speaking, the developer will try to work with the property owner if there is the need to acquire any property for right-of-way or other purposes. That's the path that's usually the path of least resistance. Just regular old negotiations. If I need some land, I'll pay you this much for it. What do you think about that? You know, I had it appraised and so forth. If it goes beyond that, then the city can get involved, but we try to avoid that kind of a situation. So, but it's generally the developer dealing directly with the potentially affected landowner.
Just to, I don't think with in this, I may need correction from the developer or somebody knows more about the specific project, but my understanding is that there is not going to be any acquisition of any property as currently proposed from other private property owners. I believe any of the infrastructure that's being put in where there's a need for additional public infrastructure at this time is coming either from public right-of-way or from the developer's property. Is that
Yeah, thank you.
Am
I
I
should
wrong?
have prefaced my
I just wanted to
answer
make sure
with
that, just get that out there on the record.
No,
Thank
that's
you.
correct. I should have started off with that.
I think to Mike and Julie, one of the things that I've seen that's helpful is if you have the questions written down or typed or something, and then as there is any discussion or you talk with the staff, it's easy to give them the questions to kind of follow along, even after the meeting. That type of thing is helpful because then you know all the questions are being addressed and you don't forget anything. I think that's it. For me, I know that the council members tried to ask a lot of the questions that you asked. I don't know anything else that we left off. The water was one, the city property, the wall, access to their homes, I think is the biggest concerns.
Vice Mayor, I wanted to add, since it ties in with your question too, I just wanted to add for the record that there's been some discussion from the public concerning potential extensive or more extensive improvements. The issue though that the city has with that is that we can't necessarily require a developer legally to do that. We're actually constrained and we have to make sure that whatever we're requiring is proportionate to the development. And just because there might be potentially an effect or a future effect, especially if other development comes in, we have to wait for those other developments before we can necessarily require more extensive. So just wanted to get that on the record too.
No other comments.
The request for this evening is to adopt resolutions with mitigation and monitoring, and having conducted the public hearing, then would be to approve the tentative subdivision map with conditions. This is a request to authorize a tentative map. It's not a final map. Is that correct?
Correct. If this is approved, then the next step would be for the subdivider to cause to be prepared a final map and improvement plans. And the improvement plans would need to be approved by city engineering and public works staff. And the final map would need to be reviewed and determined to be technically accurate by the city's surveyor. And then all of the improvements would need to be bonded for or otherwise have security put up to ensure their installation before the city council can accept the final map as complete. And then ultimately it gets recorded and then.
That would be the recording of the final map?
Correct. Which
Okay.
would be presumably several months down the road.
But that would be further down the line, but in order to go there, it's the approval of the tentative map.
Correct.
And in the meantime, a lot of these questions can be worked with, and Mr. Vang, who has graciously had come on and is listening to the conversation, there'll be time for more communications to work with the community.
Correct, and most of that, I presume, will include refinements to what the city council approves, if approved. If we can't step out of bounds and
Correct.
create new conditions or require different things than what the city council considers tonight without bringing it back to council. But if there are just minor adjustments or incremental interpretations of things that are in the conditions of approval, then that can all be handled at staff level, between staff and the applicant and.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear, and I wanted Mr. Tyler and Ms. Pearson to hear that as well, that the request for this evening is tentative, but in the meantime, there'll be ample time frame so that your questions and the developer, and if you have questions of staff, as long as it's compliant and it's done through city standards, and we go from there. I really appreciate this, having had the conversation, having had it publicly, and moving on. And I'm going to bring it back to council. Please.
I was going to make a motion if you have questions.
I just had one other quick question. So I see that the property line on the east side is within city limits. It's not in the county.
Correct.
Is there a county standard that requires if residential subdivision built by a city at its border to be a certain type of, I'm thinking about a horse chewing on a wooden fence. That might not be so I'll just put that out there, and I'm ready for the motion. That was my final comment. Thank you.
Okay. Will you please go ahead?
Is there an answer to that question?
Just a comment.
I wanted to air it so that we can remember it when it comes back to us in a few months. Who's ever up here?
I will opine that there is no standard for separation at a jurisdictional boundary like that.
Okay.
We would only normally,
Kill the
county
fence.
can't make us do anything in this case. We would require the developer to do something if there were other types of uses. Say there was an industrial use or a commercial use.
Or a farm.
Well,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure the county doesn't even require a fence.
No.
Just
I'm just
to,
concerned about a farm and an animal eating a wooden fence.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to go with staff recommendation.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion, we have a second. No further discussion, call for the vote. Passes unanimous, 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vang. Thank you, everyone. Okay, we'll now go into scheduled matters. Item number 16.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tonight, we have 3 scheduled matters. The first scheduled matter is a councilman requested item for the consideration of the use of fiscal year 23-24 Special Purposes Reserve Fund for special events at the Porterville Navigation Center. At its meeting on May 7th, the City Council approved Councilmember Beltran's request for an item to be added to tonight's meeting agenda to consider allocating funds from the City Council Special Purposes Reserve Fund for special events for people experiencing homelessness in connection with the Porterville Navigation Center. It is proposed that the funding would be used to hold 3 events in excess of what Kingsview has already planned at the Porterville Navigation Center, which could include a summer water day event, Thanksgiving dinner, and a Christmas dinner. A group of volunteers would help with the planning alongside with the Porterville Navigation Center staff, who would coordinate the logistics of the event. The use of funds would be exclusively for the planning and execution of these events, including food, supplies, signage, outreach materials, and materials for event activities, and rentals of amenities such as portable restrooms, plus up to 10% of overhead costs. It is proposed the city council would be invoiced, the city would be invoiced by Kingsview for the expenses incurred during the event with supporting documentation. The source of funds could be the city council's special purposes reserve fund for the current year, from which there is currently an available budget of $100,000. Additional funding for future events could be considered after these 3 initial events. A draft resolution authorizing the appropriations of funds for the Special Purpose Reserve Fund is included in tonight's consideration. Staff's recommendation that council consider approving the draft resolution authorizing an allocation of up to $5,000 from the city's Special Purposes Reserve Fund for fiscal year 23-24 to fund special events at the Porterville Navigation Center through December of 2024. Staff is available for questions.
Okay. Councilmember Beltran.
Yes, thank you for taking this up for consideration. This comes through the last year and a half of being on the Link Committee, and again, working in that area of what works and what doesn't work, where are the needs. I believe all parties involved, whether it's KTHA, Kingsview, the previous management of the Navigation Center, have done a great job with the resources that we do have. But over the last year and a half, and my own personal development in other areas in my personal life and working through court systems of minors, families, through court systems. And at the Navigation Center, you see kind of this trend or a cycle of a lot of trauma that happens to individuals. A lot of what I've learned is we see the behaviors, whether that's drug abuse, some mental health issues, some brokenness in the families, financial, sometimes health. What a lot of the services at the Navigation Center provide are much needed services for these individuals, you know, as a social safety net. But the one thing I realize it is lacking, and see the overall development from children, and even especially those going through that are in the system, whether a group home, adoption, that hit 18 years old, is a lack of the social structure and the families. And we did an event for Easter. This was privately funded through donations in the community, and we did an event across the street at a Spanish Seventh-day Adventist church. They allowed for the members of the community that work with the homeless, and we got 10 Easter baskets, because Navigation Center doesn't allow children there. So those who are there with, they don't really have a chance to see their families if they have children, or minors, I should say. And so we thought this would be a great opportunity for them to spend time with their family members, especially the minors. And we did a barbecue, and we, like I said, we had some Easter baskets with some candy and some treats that were donated. And it was the first event ever done like that for people at the Navigation Center. And it was a little tough going. What we noticed is they formed their own little communities because they don't have a great, either their family ties or their social structure. There have been issues that have harmed that. And we thought these were ways to reconcile families, for them to be able to reconnect, to have their own little space. They don't have the finances necessarily to do these types of things for their children or for even just themselves, things that we take for granted when the holidays come around. And it was really wonderful to see that there were sign-ups, and that members did come with their children, and they got to enjoy a time that they would never have experienced before with their children. And just for at least, I believe the event was 3 hours, to not remember that they were homeless, that they got to laugh, enjoy some treats, a hot meal with a fresh barbecue. And it was really touching to see that in no other facet of the Navigation Center or through KTHA, because they don't deal with that, that we're able to provide that. And so that momentum we carried over to a Mother's Day event, which we just had on May 10th. Again, through community donations, there were flower bouquets, food was donated, and again, we had children come with their parents. And one really interesting story was there's a foster parent that was there with a minor. It dropped off the minor with their biological mother, and they got to spend time together, which normal circumstances, that mother at the Navigation Center wouldn't have an opportunity to spend that Mother's Day event with her child. And I thought it was beautiful that the foster parent, trusted the event and brought the child. But then the child at the end of the event, when we allowed them to pick out a flower to give to their mother, he also wanted one for his foster mother. And it's just tying those families back together, as much as the traumas that they're going through. And so it's hard to rattle this can around the community and ask for donations, because there's a lot of need out there. And so we're doing a Father's Day one already that's already funded, thankfully, and we're hoping for those same type of results. But I just come with this request in this field that I'm working in with the homeless, is that having the link events there every other Wednesday, part of it is having these people wanting to be there, wanting to be part of this community. We do this with the PIT events. We give out gift card incentives, just to try people that might be reluctant or not sure. It's just, I believe these kind of events give them that hope, that humanness, that family connection, that bond. A lot of them are isolated. A lot of them have, I don't know if I call it like self-esteem or just traumas already, but we can see through these events that you can see the humanness kind of coming back out, and that reconnection. And so I'll get off my soapbox here, but it is truly a blessing to see something like this in our community, where private businesses and volunteers put this together. But I would love, this is a small amount of money, and I know we probably won't even touch maybe even half of this amount, but to actually do it properly, because there were no restrooms accessible at the church, and we didn't have a lot of shade and stuff like that. So it would be nice to actually do this properly for them, that they do have shade, they're all restroom facilities. These next ones will be at the Navigation Center, so the children won't be there, but we're planning on in the future to continue those types of events where they may be across the street or somewhere close, so that there are some events that they will connect with their family, but also just for them to have just that social engagement and just normalcy to their everyday. They don't have these type of events. We're working on like art projects and some other workshops to just do some stuff different, because if you go through there Monday for 7 days a week, there's not a lot of activities for them to do. And we just want to give them some of this hope and just, again, some restoration to who they are, especially with their families and children. So that's my request, to help fund. This isn't a need that KTHA or Kingsview would normally be able to afford, because it all just goes to services. This is above and beyond. But as we go look as our memories back on our Mother's Day or Christmas or Thanksgiving, these people don't have really those opportunities. And so I just kind of come before you guys and think about offering that to them. So thank you.
I want to thank you for that information in the advocacy of the unhoused. I'm very proud of the city of Porterville, because when people say we've only been doing and being attentive to them for the last year and a half, well, they're wrong, because the city of Porterville, we're the very first to establish the Navigation Center, and we're very proud of it, and that the councils made the decision to move forward and start small so that we can be able to offer the services to the community. As an individual, having served on being a part of the process of the Navigation Center and serving on the Homeless Task Force, I don't have a problem to support the Navigation Center with a dollar amount of the $5,000, knowing that it's going to be community. So that is my comment. Councilmember Wyrock, do you have any comment?
I really appreciate you bringing this forward, Councilmember Beltran. I like keeping things simple. I'm not sure how many other grant recipients of city funds or other grantees that we partner with, if there could be a line item, budget type item going forward for these healing type events, if they're capable of doing those well. I think that would be great for the city to support something like this more broadly and more consistently and going forward. That's my only comment.
Councilmember Meister?
Well, I think I'm going to echo what Madam Mayor kind of said. The city has led the way in dealing with the transient crisis in our state, and one of the leads, the first in the county with the Navigation Center, no doubt. And I'm just going to highlight some of the funds that are spent yearly by the city. And so as a council, we all decided to spend $2 million with the Navigation Center to do bathrooms and showers. We spend $332,000 roughly annually at the National Guard Armory. And through grant funds, we spend about $843,000 a year with the navigation. And so the city of Porterville is dedicated to assisting and helping with the homeless. Now, Councilmember Beltran, your heart has been in this long before you ever wanted to be a councilman. I've actually done river cleanup with you, and I know your heart is in the right place. And my feel is, if you believe having events like this, and really when you see them on paper, you know, having a Water Day event, Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, it brings, and I may be making up a word here, but like humanizing them, bringing them back to that normalcy. And I support you in this, and so I just want to say that. But I also just wanted to point out that Porterville is leading the way, and we are doing everything we can within our means to address the crisis. It really is a crisis, and it's a tough fight. So I'd just like to say that. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, I think it's a great way to spend funds. It is a small amount, but gearing it, what you're asking for is specifically to the families, to be families. And I feel like two examples that I grew up with on the tribe are, we have an ICWA department, and part of that is reunification of families. So when children are removed from the home, the goal is to get them back into the community, whether it be with a family member, or somebody in the family, or somebody from the tribe, or somebody that's native, because we want to keep them within the community. So that's important. The other thing is there's a men's treatment center that actually my dad was one of the original founders on the reservation. It's been for years now, and it's been very successful with the men because of the socialization part. There's like a spiritual piece, and but there's a socialization part that they go through, where they go and do community service so that they feel a part of the community again. And those two things have been very successful. So that doesn't sound like, it sounds like common sense to me, that model. It's basically giving them hope, you know, to to do better so they can be with their family and be part of the community again. I support it.
Thank you. I make the motion that we approve staff recommendation in the allocation of the $5,000.
I'll second.
No further discussion, call for the vote. Passes unanimous. Jeff? You know, you don't really need to stay for the rest of this. You're free to go. Well, no, right now, I'm just letting you know, you've done your part, okay? The contracted person can leave. All right, now we'll move on. Now we'll move on to number 17.
Thank you, Your Honor. The second scheduled matter tonight is the consideration of appointments to the Transaction and Use Oversight Committee, and I've asked Ms. Andrade to provide the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Ridenhour, Mayor, and members of council. 5 of the 10 committee members on the Transaction and Use Tax Oversight Committee, known as TUTOC, have terms that are set to expire in May of 2024. These committee members are as follows: Angela Dennis, Robert K. Fall Sr., Janice Kovars, Margaret Stinson, and Joshua Soulier. Of these committee members, only Robert K. Fall Sr. and Margaret Stinson have indicated their interest in continuing to serve on TUTOC for a term expiring in May of 2028. Committee members Angela Dennis, Janice Kovars, and Joshua Soulier have indicated that they do not intend to seek reappointment at this time, resulting in 3 vacancies on the committee. During a meeting of the TUTOC on February 27, 2024, member John Simonich verbally resigned from the committee, bringing the total number of vacant seats to 4, 1 with a term expiring in May of 2026, and 3 with terms expiring in May of 2028. Staff has received no additional requests for appointment to the TUTOC, but will continue to advertise and solicit applications from interested individuals. TUTOC is charged with reviewing the revenue and expenditures of the Measure H and Measure I budgets and to report its findings to the City Council. It is comprised of 10 members of the public and is required to meet at least once annually after the adoption of the budget. It has been TUTOC's practice to meet on a quarterly basis. To be eligible for appointment, individuals must either be a Porterville resident, business owner, or business operator. Staff's recommendation is that the City Council consider reappointing Robert K. Fall Sr. and Margaret Stinson to serve 4-year terms expiring May 2028 and continue to advertise and solicit applications for the current vacant seats. This concludes the report. I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much for your report. Council, how do you wish to proceed? It's very self-explanatory.
I'll make a motion to take staff's recommendations listed. Should I read it? Okay.
Okay, we have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. No further discussion. Call for the vote. Passes unanimous, 5-0. Moving right along to number 18.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tonight's, the third scheduled matter is a nomination of a transit representative member for the governing body of the Tulare County Associations of Government. So there is currently a vacancy for the transit representative member on the Tulare County Association of Governments, also known as TCAG, governing board, that must be filled by a council member from Tulare County City that directly provides transit services in Tulare County. This position vacated by City Councilmember Kelly Carrillo, or Vice Mayor Kelly Carrillo, I apologize. Liz Wynn of Isaiah currently serves as the alternate and has indicated her interest in serving as the next member. This appointment will be made by the Tulare County Council of Cities, which is, according to its nomination procedures, will make its determination at its next meeting in late May. The City Council has been asked to nominate its preferred candidate for consideration of the Council of Cities. It is important to note that this position requires fairly significant commitments and attendance at several meetings per month. In speaking with the group, it looks like this requires approximately 4 to 5 meetings a month. So it's quite significant. And through the process, there looks to be a member as well as an alternate. And so at this point, staff's recommendation to the City Council select a candidate to nominate for the appointment of the Tulare County Council of Cities as a transit representative member to the governing board of the Tulare County Associations of Government. And staff's available for questions.
Thank you for this information, and I'm going to ask my colleagues on the dais, is there anyone who is interested in being nominated? Doesn't mean, your name doesn't mean you're going to get it. It means to be placed on a nomination and voted in. And just understand that this position, there are a lot of meetings, and you would be the TCAG transit representative. And in those meetings, as we discussed in council seats, which I'll report, I won't even report out, whoever the representative is for this position, there was an emphasis that was made that they represent all members of all cities in the county when they represent as the TCAG representative. So now, as the transit representative to TCAG, are you interested in a nomination? Any council member is interested in a nomination?
No, but I just wanted to ask Kelly, it does take up a lot of time, it looked like. And I was like, oh, this is interesting, being on alternate on CRTA, but when I found out how many meetings it took, being full-time worker, I'm like, this looks like it'd be really hard.
It is a lot. I think that with my change in employment too, it's really hard to get to all the meetings. And when I was on, there was a lot of confusion with some of the meetings being rescheduled, so that really messed me up with my schedule. There's a Calvans, which is a state, so I think you could do Zoom on that one, but the rest are all in person. Yeah, Visalia, typically. And then there's just different meetings that, like the unmet needs, I believe that one's quarterly. The transit forum may be quarterly. I'm not sure if it's monthly. And then there's just different other meetings where they would want you to be there. The other thing, like the mayor just mentioned, that's a good point, is that we're not really there to necessarily advocate for Porterville. It's more the whole county, because you're the county rep. So that is a little bit of a different hat also. That's just some feedback, but if you guys have any other questions.
So we have to nominate someone tonight, right?
If you have an interest, if you have an interest, we have to get the name submitted. And once again, it doesn't mean that you will be the representative. They will be voted on.
Okay, I guess it's my own guilt, because I feel like I probably have the lightest load on the dais. But I know that I can't meet this, so if I was to be anything, it would be committed as an alternate for Liz Nguyen, if you were to elect me. I don't know, because it sounds like she's able to say she wants to.
Yes. So council member of the city of Visalia, Liz Nguyen, has indicated that she, obviously, her council nominated her. There is an alternate position. How the process typically works is if multiple city council members from the different cities in their county want to be members, it goes to a vote at the council of cities. The person with the most votes is the member. The person with the second votes is the alternate. That's how the process works. I can, we can, if you would like to have the nomination, then at the council of cities, we can bring forth an item, I guess, to the council prior to that meeting to have who the council would like to vote for in that sense.
If just my desire is not to be the lead on that, or the committee representative, I don't mind. So we could go forward without a nomination, and Liz Nguyen would be the nominee.
Let me ask this question. Can the city of Porterville indicate their support of Liz Nguyen and councilmember Meister's consideration for alternate? Can we do that? I would like to make that motion.
I believe so, and so that's what I was getting ready to say,
Okay.
is if the council
I second that
would
motion.
like to do that, the mayor
I've
and I
made
can
the
relay this
motion, and Councilmember Meister
got a
has
motion and a
seconded it. And no further discussion, call for the vote. 5-0, moving right along. Okay. Thank you for that. This is the time for all AB 1234 reports required pursuant to Government Code 53232.3. Councilmember Meister, Flag Day Committee.
Well, we met today. I did not go in person, but I did phone in through Rico, city staff. The new things that are added, doves are confirmed. We were having issues with doves, but there will be doves. We were having issues with getting the paperwork done to close off a section of Olive Street. And I just want to give a shout out to Christy at Chamber of Commerce for stepping up, and she'll be taking that lead and getting that paperwork through as soon as possible. It's a go June 14th, so excited for it, looking forward to it. We're going to have, our next meeting will be June 11th at 8:30.
Okay, thank you. The Water Commission meeting, I attended. It was held on May the 13th. There were no public comments. We didn't even have a quorum. Some of the items that were addressed was informational. We were, the Water Commission minutes of March 11th can be found on the website. We were provided with a slideshow presentation of the East Arosi Water System Administration and their consolidation project. It included information as to population served, 932, the service area, 50 acres, the number of services, 103 unmetered connections, providing drinking water to include treatment and distribution, and the step sewer collection. Highlighted were water system issues, technical capacity, financial limitations, aging infrastructure, water quality, customers who are receiving bottled water, the lack of staff and resources. The brief explanation of the administrator program, it was established by AB 2501 in 2018. It was intended to be faster and simpler than receivership, and they appointed by the Water Board to help the water systems. And the county is the appointed administrator for the East Arosi District. This presentation, we were walked through the appointment, the current status updates of the consolidation project. Once again, I appreciate being on the Water Commission because watching the slideshow presentation, it provides us information of water in the stressed communities. With the drought and project funding information from January through April, well permits 127, broken into categories: construction 35, community 4, agriculture 37, industrial 0, dairy 0, destruction 42, and other 9. There are currently 4 tanks installed and receiving hauled water in April. In the overall program, 181. Through April the 30th, in the bottled water program, there are 1,724 households enrolled with self-help enterprises. Of that, 286 are drought-related, 1,428 contamination-related, 9 are on a wait list, and 0.25 drought-related enrollments per week. There was no report on the legislation that was tabled to the next meeting. Staff provided us with brief updates with Sigma implementation. The probationary hearing scheduled for the Tule Basin is September the 17th, and for Kauai, November of 2024. There are currently commission terms and vacancies. Currently, one is for District 5, and the other one is at large. And we will next meet on June the 10th. That will be my last meeting on the Water Commission. All right, moving on to the TCEDC Corporation Budget and Workshop Session. That really wasn't a workshop session. It was just an informational. Claudia Calderon and I attended. We were provided with the slideshow presentation of the year 2024-25 recap of the previous years and challenges. We were provided with the priorities of the annual work plan to increase private partner recruitment and involvement, generate new leads, etc. They outlined the 2024-25 budget as informational because we weren't provided with the slide, that there will be new organization for the 24-25 officers. At the meeting tomorrow, they will be making those decisions. Committee chairs provided information, private partner recruitment. They're going to seek more of the private partners, the public partner engagement with the municipalities. That pretty much stays the same, but otherwise Claudia and I are going to go to the meeting tomorrow, and all of this same information will be given to us more in a decisive fashion. The Tulare County Task Force on Homelessness, Claudia and I attended that meeting, but I want to share with you, I keep telling you that we talk about organizational and the goals and stuff. This meeting, we decided to go, and for starters, the first thing that was brought to my attention, I'm looking at the packet, and the minutes were not placed on there for approval, so they will be carried over to the next month. We just got updates on housing and data. There is a new person that's coming in from the unincorporated area who will be on the task force. His name is Anthony Gratian. Now, what was different on this agenda is we had a small discussion on addressing the grand jury, the homelessness information for 2023 and 24. I went to deliver a message because as we were reviewing the information, and I bring it to the table, Assistant Chief of Police brought to my attention that they had submitted information for Porterville, and as I read it, well, there was nothing on here for Porterville. And it was sent in a timely fashion, so I was able to voice it there. And the SMART team was there with Lieutenant Hatch and Nancy Palafox. They were listening. I was able to deliver that nothing is in here, that the Porterville Navigation Center, our Welcome Center, was established in 2020, that we have a SMART team, the police department is working in the service efforts and the resources in Porterville. And then, of course, put an emphasis on our housing. At this meeting, the conclusion is that, wondering where it was sent, I said, well, it was sent internally to someone here, but not pointing any fingers. So there will be communication, and we'll see what changes can be made. But I wanted to make council aware as our responsibility that when we see this information, it should be brought to the table. And the rest were goals that Claudia and I had already submitted. That concludes that report. And the Council of Cities, moving right along, was we talked about it. The two items that were on here was the discussion of the transit representative. Well, we just had that discussion and made the decision. And then there was highlights on two bills, Assembly Bill 2489 and Assembly Bill 2557. These were just brought to the table for city staff to view it, and if they felt that they should do something to that regard, to bring it to our attention. AB 2489 and 2557. And again, it was a very simple meeting. We didn't have a quorum, so no decisions were made at this meeting. So we are moving right along. Our next meeting is July 17th. Okay, library facility.
Yes. The Library Facility Planning Committee, met on May 16th at 4:15 at City Hall. Committee member Moore shared the public survey results to the committee. There were 754 responses. The first question requested the public to rank what types of spaces were most important to include in the new library. Large and medium community-sized community spaces ranked number 1. Small and individual meeting or study rooms were number 2, followed by library collections, books, and media. The public then had a chance to list any other space types they felt that weren't included in the options from question 1 The public were then able to view 11 different building exteriors and decide if they liked, disliked, or had no strong feelings about each image. This was followed by the same ranking choices that pertained to 10 interior spaces. Finally, images of 8 outdoor spaces were able to be ranked by the public. Next on the agenda was a new library update. Paul Halagian Architects, PHA, has concluded Phase 1, which is programming and conceptual design. That consisted of initiating the project by reviewing the needs assessment to become better familiar with the initial program. They began by investigating the project budget, scope, and site development costs. Then they met with staff and stakeholders to discuss vision, obtain direction regarding needs, service model, public engagement, and other foundational issues. Subsequent tasks included development of design standards, conceptual sketches, and collaborative design sessions, leading to a public engagement meeting to review program elements with visuals and basic organizational diagrams. Finally, a cost estimate was conducted. PHA, the architect, is waiting for approval of Phase 1 and ready to move into schematic design phase. They will study various options that consider the delicate balance between the building area and building quality character in order to find the best way to maximize the available budget. During the schematic design phase, which takes about 3 months, PHA will prepare the schematic design documents for approval consisting of drawings and other documents, including site plans, floor plans, major interior and exterior elevations, and building sections. Selection of major materials and building systems will be identified and noted on drawings. They will lead the site master planning effort to study connections with the future sportsplex. Interior design scope will include research of appropriate materials and finishes, obtain samples, and present initial concepts. Another cost estimate will be conducted at the end of this phase. And then committee member Ariano provided a library services update to the committee on the following: the activity calendar for June and July, the summer reading program, lunch at the library, an ADA pillar booth, grant on its way, a Cal State Parks grant, which provides three backpacks for a checkout, a Dia Los Niños event, other community outreach, and more. The meeting adjourned at 5:06 p.m., and the next committee meeting is scheduled for August 15th at 4:15 p.m.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's a lot of the architect work now going into the phase, so I know it sounds,
Well, I hope people are listening.
well, and, yeah, Donnie's here also if there's any questions about things that were brought up or
I
questions.
mean, I hope that there are a lot of people who are listening to this. We'll replay it. Okay, thank you for that. TCAG, Tulare County Association of Governments, I'm not really going to go into a lot of, other than consent items were pretty standard. But there was one item that I'd like to bring to the table because it did go for a discussion. There was the adoption of a resolution to approve updated 2024 TCAC Transportation Development Claims Manual. And that was important that this action be taken because what it does is provides the information of claims that are submitted for payment and going from there. So I just wanted to make the comment, and I stated it, that I can appreciate TCAG's work on reviewing the current TDA manual and establishing new procedures and reiterating the current policy procedures to ensure transparency. That's important. And like I said, another item that was important, we were provided with the slideshow presentation of priority projects in no particular it was a project funding discussion, that how it's brought to the table and how they work with the funding, whether it's state, federal, and what the triggers are. It wasn't a decision, it was just brought to us as informational, that it would be brought to us in a different meeting and a different setting. And a lot of this, as the conversation was unfolding, it's information we had received at the board retreat. It just reiterates and brings us to the table where CMAQ, STBG block grants, transit funds, state funds for the RTIP, and et cetera, and how they're explained to us once again. But that really concludes the report. I wanted just to simply state that those items were brought to the table, and we will be having further discussions, but that a decision was made. The next meeting will be in Farmersville on June 17th. That concludes that report. Moving on right along. Councilmember Wyrock, the Tulare County Regional Transit Agency.
Thank you. It was a long meeting. We met last night at about 4 p.m. Can I see a show of hands of the number of people that attended that meeting, either in person or online, or even online, So,
I heard about it.
so a number of people attended, and really thank everybody for their support of Porterville, including our attorney, who's representing the city's interests as we move out of the Tulare County Regional Transit Agency. This was my second to the last meeting. We did meet in Visalia, and I'll be brief with my comments due to the sensitivity of some of these items. So we had a quorum. It came in the door at the last moment. There was remote participation by Director Thusu, who was traveling on emergency, not emergency, but city business. We administered the oath of office to new directors, and that would be Larry Macari from the County of Tulare Supervisor, and to Jose Martinez from the City of Woodlake. After the pledge, we opened it up for public comment. There was a little bit of public comment about the situation ongoing with Porterville. And then they quickly moved into closed session, and about 2 hours later, they came out of closed session with no information to report. We reconvened open session. The executive committee met. They've just mostly reviewed the agenda. That was their report out. Budget and Finance Committee did not meet. There was no scheduled meeting that occurred. Operations Committee did meet, and they discussed microtransit. There were no there were no presentations. The consent calendar items included the approval of the minutes and a monthly ridership summary. During the approval for the minutes, there was some comment about some additions, and we wanted the meeting minutes to reflect a couple of items that weren't very clear in the minutes, so that went on record. Then we moved on to the action items. There was 2 action items at the beginning of this part of the meeting. The first was a request by a board member to replace the existing chair. The second was a request by a board member to replace the existing vice chair. And actually, the third item was an action by board member Riddle to rescind any prior decision by the board with respect to the creation of some subcommittees. So there was a movement that we take them all together, and that it ended up being that item 1 and 2, the replacement of the chair and the vice chair, was tabled. It was withdrawn. However, the request to rescind any special TCRTA subcommittees did pass. Due to the size of the agency, the number of subcommittees and the membership on those committees, it was felt like there may not be complete transparency with the minutes coming out of those subcommittees. We did take action to establish a policy for sharing closed session information among member agencies. It's nice to have those guidelines in place. There was action to receive and file preliminary financial statements that had some interesting information, conflicting information, and information that may not have proved if it was reviewed and presented by another person with some financial insight into the workings of the funding sources and the expenditures. There was an approved amendment with Brown Armstrong for the 23-24 audit. That would be a budget item for the 24-25 fiscal year, which hasn't started yet. So even though it was asked to be discussed after the discussion on the budget, it ended up through some information from Ted Smalley that getting the budgeting going would be prudent for the agency to take action on at that time, so it did pass. There's some action to adopt some program projects for inclusion into FTIP. This got kind of complicated for me, so give me just a minute. I'd like to turn to that portion of the meeting if I may. So there's a lot of different funds that are being used to develop the FTIP programs. There's listed out in the meeting minutes on or the agenda item, page 66, 4 different expenditures, and the project descriptions were very vague. It didn't really give details on how that money would be spent. There was some discussion about why it's vague and how that's typical. There was some discussion about the discussion of urbanized areas. We wanted to make sure that Porterville funds weren't used to help fund any of these allocations. It did look like they might have been including Porterville in an allocation. And I didn't know if they needed an amendment to it or not. And after discussion, it was tabled. They did not vote on that item. Next was a presentation of the 24-25 operations budget, and I seem to recall that that was also tabled because there's some action at the county level with TCAG about funding and LTF funds being used and in the balance, and I guess there were some letters written by different cities to the agency about not approving any funding sources until everybody meets again, and I believe that city managers meeting might even be tomorrow, where those items will be discussed. There was, I abstained on a couple of votes. One was to authorize federal funding under FTA Section 5311 and 5339, just trying to distance Porterville from any kind of commitment to the TCRTA, as well as the adoption of the procurement manual. We did pull that. My comment was, and I want to thank the staff. I met with the staff here in Porterville before this TCRTA meeting, and they brought to light that it looked like it was an edited copy from somewhere, but it wasn't redlined. There's just markings in the margin, so I was kind of curious where it may have came from, and I just wanted to make sure we weren't borrowing somebody's protected work or violating a copyright. So they agreed to get a marked up version to us to review. Procurement manual is very important. There was a micropilot or microtransit pilot update given, and that was pretty thorough. They seem to have it lined up pretty well to take care of areas in the North County. We did discuss connectivity. Some of the microtransit buses will bring riders to our Porterville Transit Center. We didn't get into the depth of how the other routes are going to transfer to city buses starting July 1st, but that is an action item that will be coming soon to the board. We received the draft format for the 22-23 audit. It was shared that it was 95 to 98 complete, so it was draft. There's a lot of money that was borrowed that was placed in here possibly incorrectly. So it was nice to see that it was submitted as a draft. They'll be changing some of this, and we should see that at the next meeting, hopefully sooner with some of the activities we have going on behind the scenes related to our withdrawal. Little discussion that there was agreements in place on the status of services in Farmersville, Exeter, and Goshen. And Intent of TCR to cease services into the city of Porterville, a public notification. Apparently, I didn't know this was important, but I guess it is, to notify the world that TCRTA will no longer be serving the city of Porterville. They had the date as April 28th of 2024 that we submitted a notice of withdrawal, which was wrong. We brought that to their attention. And again, we talked about ridership and where they'll drop riders. And there is ongoing commitments that verbally were stated that they're not just going to drop them at the city limits. Next couple of things, we went over the vehicle asset worksheet, which did point out the fact that a lot of vehicles have title and registration with the city of Porterville. And it was brought to our attention that we should not be delayed in receiving those vehicles at the conclusion of our agreement with the TCRTA. So we should be able to be up and running right away on the 1st of July. I would, however, at this time like to, and I'm sure we have a way to take a look and walk every one of these units and make a punch list of some of the repairs that might be needed if they're returned to us in non-usable condition or in a condition that may not reflect the beauty and pride that we all have in Porterville. There was an operational report by the executive director, key performance indicators. He provided some information about a multi-million-dollar contract with Transdev to supply transit throughout the county. They had a couple of events, safety-related events, where the drivers may have were involved, and they're looking into those things, and they're asking Transdev to make improvements to those drivers, making sure that they don't repeat those types of driving behaviors or contribute to damages or harm to people in the public. So I felt pretty good about the safety committee portion report of that. That concludes my report. We're going to meet again on the third Monday of June at 4 p.m. at the Church Street address. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
No, I want to thank you, Councilmember Wyrock, and your participation in all the meetings and everything else that has come with it. It doesn't go unnoticed. I just wanted to say that because it's been a long process, and thank you for that.
I'll just share something from my own experience in the business world, if I may. City staff, there's going to be projects that you get involved with over time that just really take the wind out of your sails, so to speak, and just plow through, stay courageous, keep your chin up. And when you look back over those events a couple years later, it really helps develop you. And you can't pay for that kind of education. So it's, Madam Mayor, thank you for the expression of appreciation, but I've learned a lot, and I probably couldn't afford to pay for an education like I received. And a shout out to all the staff that's been very supportive with all of this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving right along, we'll now go into oral communications. Anybody want to say anything out there? You do? Well, come on up. All right, I guess not. Do we have anyone on virtually?
No, yeah.
Thank you. We'll now go into other matters. Councilmember Beltran.
Just want to recognize the youth committee members that gave their presentation today. And thank you, Madam Mayor, for extending that council is available to them if they ever want to learn anything or ask us questions. It's great to see the youth involved. So I just love that program. I want to thank staff for preparing the item that we discussed earlier for the Navigation Center events. And thank you, council members, for approving that. I look forward to giving you guys updates on the progress of those and just how meaningful, like I said, Councilman Meister stated how much funds we do expend, but unfortunately, some of these extra things you can't spend that money on. They're very restrictive, so just thank you again, and I look forward to sharing how those are impactful for those there. This will be our last meeting before graduation, so congratulations to all those who are getting promoted to that next grade or they finally met their degrees. I know my wife is one of them who's got her bachelor's degree, and some coworkers that finished up some classes at Fresno State. And so just the extended education and goes well into our adulthood. We thought we were done with school when high school was over, but it's just great to see. Even Porterville College, I believe, had a little over 500 graduates, and it was really neat in the Porterville Recorder to read through all the different I was just say courses that people got degrees on or further in their education, especially in the medical field. It was really neat to see our local education here. So stay safe out there while they celebrate with their friends and family. The fair, I went on Sunday. Unfortunately, the animals were already gone, but it was really nice to see community members out there. So it was just nice, again, it's just something for the community to go out and enjoy, and for kids that are in FFA or in 4-H. Just really nice community event. The Spring Fest on Main Street, put it on by the Chamber of Commerce, was really fun. It was later on in the year because of the weather conflict. It was warm, but it was really nice to see the community come out, and it looked a lot bigger than last year's. Very well organized, so great job to the chamber for organizing that. A lot of signage, a lot of participants, so I hope, I got sunburnt, so that shows you how warm it was. Let's see. Thank you, Councilman Meister, for the Flag Day update. We won't have another council meeting before that one happens, so I hope the community comes out. There's always a great group of people in the community that support that, so I look forward to seeing, especially the skydiving this year is going to be a really neat element to that. So I always look forward. Last year, Sheriff Boudreau was a speaker, and he gave a great speech, so I look forward to seeing who's going to give the speech this year. It's always a very patriotic event to attend. And as the weather warms up, stay hydrated out there. I know I'm getting caught mouth up here just trying to talk, and I'm in air conditioning, so just stay hydrated out there, be safe. There's a couple of grass fires out there, so firefighters, I know this is the busy season for you guys, so stay safe out there, and people knock down your weeds and shrubs and clear your properties properly, and just stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Wyrock?
Thank you. I don't want to forget to wish everybody a happy Memorial Day weekend. It's a time to celebrate, and I'm sure we all will. Our freedoms are earned on the blood and the lives of our military, and I hope you have a great Memorial Day weekend. School graduation as well. I was looking at some websites. I was looking at PUSD websites. They've already had a graduation this week. There's more scheduled, and I just want to thank those who sponsor safe and sober graduation parties. Every year we talk about this, and I don't think I heard of a tragedy last year or the year before since I've been on the dais. So that's very good, and I'd like to express my appreciation for those hosting safe and sober graduation parties. A lot of people are graduating, and I was just trying to find online how many kids graduate, and then they have summer before they go to school, a lot of them, and where are the jobs? And where are the jobs? And you know, we've heard some comments during open communications where people were saying when people come to town, they look for libraries. If they want to maybe put a business here, they'll look at libraries and things like that. But they also look at roads, and they look at a lot of other things in the community. And, you know, the better we make the community look, the more we represent the community as well as we all do love it, the more opportunity we may have to really land some big employers, some employers that have good wages. So I'm hoping all of these kids, if they want to find a job, they can find a job, that they're safe when they travel to and from those employment opportunities if they're outside of the city limits. I too want to express my appreciation to the youth committee for coming tonight, and their shout out to both Claudia and Donnie for your influence on them. You know, we go through life, and sometimes we wonder about people that we worked with years down the road. And the strange things happened to me the other day on Facebook. I got pinged by a person I used to pick up and take to work on a construction site like 40 years ago. He found me on Facebook, and I remembered one certain thing, that a whole bunch of 2x4s kind of fell towards the ground, and he had to run out of the way. That's what I remember. But he didn't remember anything about that. It was all about me giving him a ride and teaching him how to hammer a nail. And, you guys are, all of our staff that participate with the youth, and even our community services people, volunteer organizations, we really can influence the next generation by just taking time to invest in them. I'm very pleased with the stewardship of our water resources, and I'd like to publicly invite a partnership with our businesses and the school districts within the city limits. I think together we have a responsibility, a joint responsibility for the water in the city, and I look forward to possibly having some conversations with some of our larger consumers of water, and just to ensure that we have water for all, I think is a term that the Vice Mayor used earlier tonight. I did get a notice that the Tule River Parkway had a volunteer day, a couple of them. They took some plants and flowers and they pressed them into clay, and they're going to get fired and put out there in the Tule River native plant garden, which is very nice. I think the city put it together a number of years ago, nice paved area, and there's some different gardens throughout it. And it's really coming along, but there's been some reports of people just using the water spigot for showers, tagging seats, destroying some volunteers' work in a garden. I'm not quite sure how we can control that. It's dark there more than half of the 24-hour day almost, and people come and go through there. But I don't know what we have for, if somebody's caught with a spray paint can in their hand, or they're around the corner and they say, I didn't do it, and you look at their fingertip and there's all the black spray paint or red spray paint, you kind of know that they pushed down the nozzle. If we have, and I know our resources are stretched thin, and I don't want to go after all the graffiti artists, but they're tagging the gardens, they're tagging around the city a little bit, and I know we don't like it, we try to get it knocked down as quickly as possible. I appreciate that. But let's really, if there's more that we as a council can do to help keep our city as beautiful as we want it to be, please let us know and we'll do all that we can. Finally, back to jobs. I mentioned to some staff members the other day, and we've all been, not all of us, but some of us have been aware that Sierra View Medical Center has been invited to do presentations here over the last year and a half or so, and we haven't been able to get the calendars to mesh up. I had a great conversation with the CEO today. We talked for about a half an hour or so about some different issues, and I'm encouraged. We were talking about the leapfrog score, which is a quality report where a hospital has to provide answers to specific questions, and all hospitals have to answer those questions, and then the agency, which is a nationally accredited agency, will issue a report card. And for a number of years, they were at a B, and a number of years, it dropped a little bit, and it dropped again, and they've got some great programs going on there now. And I just extended an invitation to Donna to come up down here and, get with staff to make a time and come down and give us a little report. It's a great hospital. They're doing great things. And she told me something that I read about a while ago that I'd forgotten about, but they have a resident there, or residents there, and it's kind of becoming a training hospital where they train the next people to do the right thing. And I'm fully confident that the scores are going to start coming up, and they're on a good financial footing. It sounds like they've been pretty conservative, but there's some deferred maintenance and different things. But it was a real great conversation. I look forward to hearing from the CEO here someday in the future. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Meister.
Well, first I wanted to start with the military banner program for the honorees. That's this Friday, correct? I made a mistake. I will be leaving out of town the 24th. I'm in a wedding on Saturday, and so I forgot to. I scheduled babysitter. I put in that work to get the time off, but I did not communicate with staff, so I apologize. I am going to need you guys to.
I will be honored to read your names.
Thank you. So I apologize for that. I missed the ball on that.
Oh, thank you. I will go ahead and read your names, Councilmember.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To the TCTRA, Dawn, you asked to raise our hands if we watched the meeting. I was there until you went into closed session for 2 hours. So I know there's a lot of hard work, not only by yourself, and what a great report there you gave, but staff in the room. There's a lot going on, and so thank you for the hard work and dedication to the people of Porterville. I also attended the Spring Festival. I got to be a judge for the chili cook-off. Right away, looking at the different samples, I mean, one of the vendors had prime rib in their chili. I mean, it was like, I looked at it, I was like, that's the winner. I mean, it was, but really good, great time. I also had the honor of showing Alexandra Macedo, she's a candidate for State Assembly, the community that makes up an all-American city. So it was a great honor to show her around and show it. And Raymond, I too was sunburnt. 2 days later, my forehead peeled. So a lot of fun. I also attended the Peace Officers Memorial Day, the 15th. You know, it's always a great honor to just hang out with our police officers and see the kind of men and women they are. I many times have said they have the hardest job, and unpredictable. Families are committed, you know. And I showed up late, and I was out front, and there was these two younger gentlemen, and the doors were locked because they were having the event out back, and I went up and I asked, you know, just communicating, how are you guys? And they were waiting for the bicycle. One of them got the story out of them. One of them tried to run from the police department, and they were detained. And talking with them, Chief Castillo came to the front door and opened up the door, and I said, all right, you guys take care. And as I walked away, one of them made the comment, oh, you're one of them. And it really goes to the demonization to police departments throughout the nation, but sometimes I'm reactive, and in this time I wasn't. I chose to keep walking. But I thought to myself, you know, I'm not one of them. I don't know what it's like to be a police officer. I don't know what it's like to serve in that capacity, what it's like for family members, for lost brothers or sisters in arms or through that service. But what I am is a supporter, and I'll continue to support our police department and stand behind you guys and do everything I can to make sure you have the best equipment and the best capabilities to provide services to our community. So I thank you for inviting us to that event. I also attended the fair on Saturday, and man, it was packed. And something, I don't know if we do this every year, but I saw police departments from all over the place. Visalia, Dinuba. Is that something we do every year? It is. Okay, I just never paid attention. So that was neat. And I mean, especially with the open border and you know, we've heard about terrorists coming across into our country, and the fear factor of, and I'm not trying to fearmonger, but you know, when I take my family into places, I'm looking at exits. I am making sure that I'm going to be able to protect my family. So to know that the law enforcement was there in force, I just felt protected. It was a good time. And then I wanted to, I'll share with you, Shelley. I know Madam Mayor got to see this. Farmersville did it looks like their businesses came together. They did for their memorial parade. It's something that I would like, not to ride their coattails, but I thought it was a great idea. I think it would be something cool to partner up with the Chamber of Commerce on. I'm not making a motion right now or anything like that. I want to talk to Chrissy. Maybe things are already in the works, but really liked it. I'd love to see our businesses with the city and showing things that we do in the future, possibly. Just with that, and I just want to share that with you. Other than that, it's Freedom Month coming up, so looking forward to it, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Did you call me Shelley?
It's late.
Yeah, I'm just teasing. Well, thank you, I will check this out. It looks nice. I think I think I congratulated all the graduates last time because my daughter was graduating, so I had 2 events to go to. And then my brother just graduated this past week from Fresno State, and then I have a niece graduating from UC Santa Barbara in June. So it's been really busy, but it's a good time attending all these graduations and seeing all the different families and friends and all the graduations getting ready to get set up in our community. Just want to congratulate everyone on their accomplishments. And thank my colleagues up here that are attending all the events that are going on in the city in honor of the people in the military, but also our officers and our staff. I missed the luncheon also recently. But I'm glad to hear when you are all able to attend to acknowledge those. I am looking forward to the military banner event on Friday, and I actually will get to be here, so that's good. Other than that, I don't really have a lot to say tonight, so I'm not going to drag it on.
That's because you're tired.
Yes.
Because you're tired. All right. When people say there's not a lot to do, well, there's always something to do. If you're not at an event, you're in meetings. What else? Story of our lives. I did go to the Tulare Kings Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Ambassador Luncheon on May the 8th. And the reason I attend these luncheons because they are open to everybody and you don't have to be a member, but they bring potential business, well, they are business owners in and around our surrounding areas, and they do a presentation and you get to ask questions as to what they're doing and et cetera. So I use it as a venue to promote Porterville and our events. May the 10th, Claudia, Jason, and I went to see Dee Dee Myers from Governor Newsom's office at the breakfast and she provided us with a lot of information, and it was good information because you had representatives there from the healthcare industry, the Caltrans industry, people who are involved with community development, and to that regard. I went to the Spring Festival. I saw Councilmember Meister from a distance and Councilmember Beltran from a distance. I got as far as walking and ended up at the Palace with my family because they came out of town from Fresno to play, because it was Mother's Day weekend. They came to place flowers, and so they caught up with me there. So we just ended up enjoying the rest of the afternoon. By the time we got out, everybody was already removing their stuff and ready to go home. I want to say congratulations to the 2024 Leadership Porterville graduates. We have the City of Porterville, Lieutenant Orlando Ortiz. Congratulations to him for having completed. It was good to be there. I'm glad I went. And Councilmember Meister, I vividly recall when I served on the hospital board and numerous times, and you talk about the ratings, I wasn't elected on that board, that how it has changed and has transitioned, and it goes back to at one time the board was members of the community, a different representative pocket area, and Mrs. Donna Hefner, who's the CEO, has been invited numerous times to come to the city of Porterville and do a presentation, and I'll leave it at that. The audit committee that was originally scheduled for May 29th has been rescheduled to June 26th. This May 24th is the K-tip ribbon cutting, which there's history to that. I know that I will be attending because of the history of the predecessors and Mr. Moore in the audience, family member connectivity. So it's a celebration for the new owners, the Arredondos, who are transitioning and providing the English station and going on. I will be attending the retirement of the executive director for the Porterville Shelter, PSW. Is it still called there you go, it changed, okay. And today, I received information that I'm going to pass it out to my colleagues. I printed this at home because I noticed that in the email, it was only sent to a couple of us, and I wanted council members to have it. There went all my ink at home. Anyway, with that being said, Vice Mayor and I cannot attend the ribbon cutting to the housing subdivision. And if one of you council members want to go and attend, I'm giving it to you so that you're aware of it. And that is next week. And they would just like to know, or if you could let me know if you'd like to go, so that we can let them know that you will be arriving. That was the request, okay? And who got 852? Whose number is 852?
That would
My
be
gosh, is
Chief
that-
Costello, 852. So it would have been much better at 847.
Who's 847?
That would be myself.
Oh, well, let's continue. My God, okay, well, let's keep moving on. Mr. Ridenour? That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. A few things to mention. I look forward to seeing everybody Friday for the military banner ceremony. Thank you, Donnie and his team, for putting that together, as always. We'll be honoring 50 of the heroes of our community. Also, we have Memorial Day this weekend. Just want to make note, remember to honor the military personnel who really provide the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. So thank you to everybody who serves the military. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, you guys want to say anything? This is your chance. That's it. 9